The residents of Texarkana are being stalked by a legendary beast.
After it screamed, I screamed and hollered back. It ran off in the woods toward the creek.
It hunts its human prey methodically before violently attacking.
The guy was in shock. He had marks all over him.
This nocturnal creature slips away into the night, leaving behind only its tracks.
There were 16-inch tracks, pretty deeply impressed in the mud.
Now, recent sightings are used to pinpoint a triangular search area.
The turkey hunter sighting was about 5 miles west of here.
Monster Quest launches an expedition in this remote region to find new evidence of the swamp stalker of Boggy Creek.
If it touches the tree, it's going to touch this reagent, and we're going to be able to see the handprint.
Well, I seen my monster, and actually, I don't want to see it no more.
Witnesses around the world report seeing monsters. Are they real or imaginary? Science searches for answers on Monster Quest. Fouke, Arkansas. A small, sleepy little town with a church, a school, and a local store. Fouke is also home to a nightmare. At times so real and so terrifying that some residents packed up and left in the middle of the night. Fouke is the birthplace of the swamp stalker of Boggy Creek.
I could see the muscles in its back.
Then I heard something walking up on me from behind.
He was in a state of near hysteria.
Very aggressive. I mean, it sounded like it was just feet away.
Eyewitnesses report seeing a creature 7 to 8 feet tall and up to 300 pounds. It's very muscular, with a chest approximately 3 feet across. Its body is covered with a coat of long, reddish brown or black hair, and it moves quite fast on 2 feet. In 1972, the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek was made depicting actual events. They unfolded at a rural home near Fouke on Saturday night, May 1st, 1971. The film features a 3-toed man-like ape, over 8 feet tall, that terrorizes local residents. In the movie, law enforcement officials and local hunters track the beast, but to no avail.
The Boggy Creek Monster seems to be a swamp monster that's ape-like.
Renowned cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman describes the real terror that gripped the area.
It really stirred up people. It became very enraging, but also very frightening. It was in the newspapers.
We thought it'd be a 2 or 3 day story, and it would go away. And then it made the wire services.
Dave Hall, a local newsman, drove to Fouke to investigate.
I got a call one morning from a doctor at the emergency room that I knew, and he said, "I've got a guy down here that says he was attacked by a monster."
The man's name was Bobby Ford. He'd been visiting his brother Don at his rural home just north of Fouke.
And so we went off down to Fouke, and by the time we got there, the Ford family had a U-Haul trailer backed up to the front porch, and they were putting furniture in as fast as they could get it in, and they said, "We're getting out of here before dark."
Earlier, Don's wife Elizabeth had been threatened by the creature while home alone. Late that night, the beast would return, this time attacking Bobby in the yard just east of the house.
They heard a noise outside, and Bobby Ford went outside. His family then brought him to the hospital, and he was most definitely in shock.
Don Ford and a friend, Charles Taylor, chased the creature, and shortly after midnight they shot at it 7 times with shotguns.
It's been a long time since I've seen someone that scared.
It wasn't long before terror would again grip the community. In July, just 2 months after the Ford incident, strange tracks were found in a bean field just outside Fouke.
We got a call that some people in that area had seen some unusual tracks.
H.L. Phillips was the deputy sheriff of Miller County and responded to the scene.
I took several plaster casts of the tracks there, and I recall it seemed to be 3 large toes on the foot, which was quite a bit different from a normal 5.
Monster Quest has obtained the photos, and they will be re-examined for the first time in decades. This analysis may allow us to identify a link to the Ford attack.
There is no precedent for a flat-footed animal to have a reduced number of digits, particularly 3.
Dr. Jeff Meldrum is a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University. In 1976, a discovery was made in Tanzania, Africa, that has greatly advanced the understanding of how early man evolved to walking on 2 feet. Meldrum will use it as the basis for his research.
The study of footprints has only matured here in the past couple of decades with the discovery of the Leotola tracks from Tanzania.
The African tracks were found to be over 3.7 million years old, and allowed scientists to question the evolution of feet.
Now, there have been occasions where, due to inbreeding, a mutant feature may take hold, as exemplified in this photograph of an individual with a condition that results in essentially 2 large digits with a prominent cleft between them. In Africa, there's a group of natives in which this trait has become so fixed in the population that they're referred to as the ostrich people.
The science of determining tracks is not simple, and Dr. Meldrum will need time to analyze these.
Any animal that has a plantigrade foot, or a foot that is flat on the ground with the heel touching the ground, will have 5 digits in contact with the ground. A bear is a good example, and for that reason bear tracks are often confused with human tracks, or sometimes even attributed to Sasquatch.
There are some who believe that confusion and misidentification with known animals may be responsible for the strange creature sightings.
Anytime that you're hunting or fishing, there's a chance that you could misidentify something.
Mike Harris is a wildlife specialist with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. He has lived in this area his entire life and says lack of evidence is an argument against the creature.
I've hunted and fished in and around the Sulfur River Wildlife Management Area ever since I was, big enough to hunt, and I've never seen anything that couldn't be explained. Some type of physical evidence would be required to substantiate that it was here, such as tracks, hair samples, etc. The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's official stance concerning any type of creature like this is that it just doesn't exist.
This man needs no convincing that something is out there. He believes he came face to face with a monster.
Something was walking up behind me, and as I could see it, it was big and black.
In October 2000, Stacy Hudson, an avid bow hunter, had set a deer stand in the Sulfur River Wildlife Area, less than 10 miles from Fouke.
I had hung my climbing stand up the day before on a tree down by the river. The next morning, I walked in, found my tree stand, turned around backwards.
Hudson repositioned it 12 feet above ground and began to hunt. After just half an hour, something approached him.
As it got under my stand, I felt something touch my leg. It was very large. It was black. When I bow hunt, I'm camouflaged from head to toe. My bow, my arrows are camouflaged. The only thing that's not camouflaged is my broadhead.
Hudson was terrified by this broad daylight encounter.
I've never experienced anything like that before. I think the broadhead cut him because he screamed really, really loud, and I started cussing.
Eyewitnesses often report loud, wild, animal-like sounds during their encounters, but Hudson says he heard a completely different kind of sound.
It let out a very loud yell, and it ran back toward the river, breaking limbs, trees, everything.
Stacy Hudson has periodically returned to the area in an attempt to gather evidence of what he saw. Recently, he found some unidentified scat that will be analyzed by a DNA and parasite expert.
I walked in the woods where I had my sighting to see if I could find the same tree I was hunting out of, and I run across some large-sized scat. I've never seen any out in the woods that big, especially an area where there's no cows or horses or anything like that.
Scat, or animal feces, can be tested for parasites and DNA material to try and determine its origin.
Hey, come on.
Monster Quest will launch its own expedition to search for more clues about the possible existence of the swamp stalker. Boggy Creek is part of the Sulfur River Basin. The Sulfur River flows into the Red River, which meanders south across Arkansas and Louisiana, before finally joining the Great Mississippi.
Sulfur River WIldlife Management Area is the largest intact wetlands ecosystem that's still associated with the Red River drainage. It's very narrow in places, but I would say it's probably 14, 15 miles long, something like that.
The team has chosen this maze of creeks and trails because it will give them their best chance at finding the swamp stalker.
If there is such a creature, it's most likely a primate of some sort that is adapted to the area.
Rick Knoll will lead the expedition. He is a field researcher and photographer who specializes in cryptids, or unknown creatures. His team is made up of Mark Porter, Ken Stewart, and Stacy Hudson, field investigators from the Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy.
But it wasn't.
White-tailed deer, wild turkey, and small game animals all inhabit the Sulfur River area. And another team member, Jerry Hestan, says there are perils as well.
There could be some dangerous animals in here. There's all sorts of venomous snakes and occasional alligators.
The team is preparing to search the rivers and bayous. They will perform both day and night reconnaissance.
All right, guys, we need to descent this.
Okay.
We know a lot of hunters use this camo when they go hunting, but the animals can smell us also, so this should help a little bit.
Hestan's kayak is specially equipped with a remote-controlled video camera. The kayak provides him the perfect vantage point to record any unusual activity along the river. Roughly 250 miles northwest lie the Ouachita Mountains. Together with the Ozarks, they are the only major mountain regions between the Rockies and the Appalachians. The other half of the expedition is already targeting another hotspot of reported sightings.
Yeah, it'd be nice to check both those cameras today.
Outdoor wildlife specialist Mark Peterson and expedition member Darrell Collier have positioned cameras at likely trail crossings when they come across a dramatic find.
It's not there.
What do you mean?
Camera's on the ground.
Monster Quest is investigating reports of a large, hairy creature said to terrorize locals outside of Fouke, Arkansas. Native American legend tells of a large, hairy wild man that roamed northeast Arkansas as early as 1834. In 1851, the Memphis Inquirer reported that a wild man stampeded a herd of cattle in the same area. Eyewitness creature as huge in stature. It ran with long strides and had footprints that measured 13 inches. The reports were relatively infrequent until the late 20th century, when activity intensified near Boggy Creek, Arkansas. Soon, sightings spread to an area covering the corners of 3 additional states: Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma. These reports spread across the region, eventually reaching the Ouachita Mountains, which span the Arkansas-Oklahoma border. The rugged terrain here is home to some of the most recent encounters.
In 2004 spring, I was turkey hunting that morning.
Terry Davis came across the beast as it walked on 2 feet.
I'd set my blind up and settled down to hunt. I blew a locator call, and I noticed something coming off the side of the mountain. It was walking upright, looking for that sound that I had made. It was maybe a foot and a half taller than I was, and just massive, just big. And it stood there, and I smelled a smell like in a fox den, or if you like been to the zoo, that strong wild smell.
Davis watched the beast for 5 minutes before it turned and headed back up the mountain.
I hunt every year harder than most, and whatever I seen was something that I had never seen before, and I haven't seen anything like that since.
We're in this particular area because there have been a number of reported sightings that we deem to be reliable and credible.
Darrell Collier was in Air Force intelligence for 6 years and has extensive survival skills training. He is part of the Monster Quest expedition searching for evidence of this beast.
Hey, come on.
He is joined by professional tracker Mark Peterson.
It's a nice little trailhead here.
Peterson placed several Reconyx camera traps in the area several weeks earlier. Now, the two have returned to an area just a few miles from where Davis originally saw the beast.
Here you go, Darrell, why don't you take the camera?
Now they're installing a new series of advanced Buckeye cameras. These long-range wireless camera systems are designed to take video and still photos.
We've got to get our antenna hooked up, okay?
The camera transmits color images by day and infrared images at night to a computer base located up to 2 miles away. Should anything unusual trigger their cameras, they will be able to respond immediately.
Get this antenna up about 9 10 feet.
Peterson returns to base camp to help Collier position the cameras correctly.
Once we've set the Buckeye cameras out, then you can change the settings. I can change the controls on this camera, any of the settings, from 3 megapixel picture all the way up to video, simply by changing them on the computer, even though they're out 1.5 miles in the woods. We've set the camera now to video, and we want to make sure that the camera is pointed in the right direction.
The sweet scent of apple oil is used as a lure to attract animals to the area.
Oil on the top of that trailhead by that pine tree.
Copy that. Over.
Okay, now that
the Buckeye camera works perfectly, sending a video signal in real time back to Peterson's computer.
We can simply go to that video and see what we've done. We've got a camera set up there on a dry creek bottom.
The team discusses where to start the search.
This trail here goes all the way almost to Blue Bouncer Mountain.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to get there with anything but horses or on foot.
Great girl. Great girl.
While Mark saddles up the horses, Darrell prepares his backpack for the journey. The two set out to check one of the cameras that has not responded to commands from home base.
You guys got a lot of bear in this area?
Too many.
Too many bear?
Yeah. Speaking of bears.
Bear trip there?
Yeah, it's great.
Good area.
Very nice.
Real good area.
One of the theories of the swamp stalker is that it might be misidentified black bears. Once relatively scarce, they have made a strong comeback in the area. The bears grow to be 5 to 6 feet tall and can weigh up to 400 pounds. Normally, they walk on all fours, but occasionally will stand upright to get a better scent or view. Peterson was able to videotape this bear while scouting the area earlier. When they reach the first camera, they realize there is a problem.
The camera's right on that tree.
I don't see it.
It's not there. Camera's on the ground.
Any scratches, tooth marks on it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, seems to be a lot.
The camera is cracked and something seems to have attacked it.
Your card reader?
Yeah.
Okay, so what knocked it down? What is it? Here we are. Bear. It's hard to see.
It looks like a bear.
It looks like a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our third.
Yeah.
That's a bear.
Yeah.
Bear knocked it down.
They munch on these cameras. They're just drawn to the petroleum and the plastic.
200 miles away near Boggy Creek, Jerry Hestand and Rick Knoll's kayak team applies small particle reagent, or SPR, to foliage along the riverbank.
What it does is it reacts to ultraviolet light, so at nighttime you'll be able to go along that riverbank again and use an ultraviolet source and see if anything touched one of those surfaces or disturbed some of the areas where you set those camera traps.
SPR is often used in crime scene investigations. Sprayed as a mist, small particles adhere to fatty substances left by body residue. Knoll demonstrated how the reagent can give an indication of an animal's presence. The laser is a powerful beam of ultraviolet light.
I'd like to show you what it does to a balloon.
The expedition team returns to the area where they sprayed the reagent chemical earlier in the day. And their search may be about to shed light on the swamp stalker of Boggy Creek.
You guys, I think I hear something over there on the bank.
Monster Quest has launched a search for a large ape-like beast near Fouke, Arkansas. The swamp stalker of Boggy Creek has been spotted in the area for decades. And a 1972 movie based on real events told of the monster's attacks on local residents. Today the sightings continue. The team's search has brought them to a waterway near Fouke called Mercer Bayou.
The network of channels is like a spaghetti bowl. People get lost in the middle of the day, and at night, you'd be crazy not to have a GPS.
And other dangers lurk beneath the water. Submerged tree stumps could easily capsize the kayaks, and these waters hold venomous snakes and alligators. The team sprayed a reagent chemical on foliage along the banks earlier. At night, it can be seen with an ultraviolet light. If an animal brushed against a bush or leaned against a tree, it would be detected by the beam of light. Witnesses who have encountered the monster say they've heard loud, wild sounds. Researchers often use the technique of call blastings, where recorded vocalizations are broadcast hoping to draw animals. Rick Knoll prepares the team.
So we play these calls on these expeditions to try and elicit a response from any of the animals that are in the general area.
Knoll is using a series of primate vocalizations in an attempt to raise animal curiosity. They hope the sounds will draw animals towards the team.
It does generate some interest sometimes. So let's see what this one does. I vary the volume. It sounds more like a live animal. Yeah. Because animals move around. Right.
The crew is prepared to record any responses to the call blasting.
Rick, this is the Bayou team. We're ready for call blast. So go ahead.
10-4.
The primate calls echo over the bayou, as a similar exercise takes place 250 miles to the northwest in the Ouachita Mountains.
Sounds of children laughing.
Yep.
Darrell Collier is demonstrating a different approach to call blasting to biology professor Alton Higgins.
Maybe just the sounds of children laughing and playing. I remember when I had my encounter, I could hear the children across the river. And I've got some sounds that are pretty close to that. They're pretty cool.
The laughing and giggling is reminiscent of what Collier heard in 2004 when he encountered an unknown creature in southeast Texas. His theory that the sound of children may have attracted the legendary monster.
My wife and I had gone to a baseball game down in Houston. On the way back, we decided to detour to this area where this couple had recently reported a sighting.
The Colliers had just crossed the Trinity River when they saw a trail they decided to explore. On the river's banks, a short distance away, a family with young children was having a picnic.
You could hear these children faintly laughing and playing. I was looking ahead of me and I see this figure that is the size of a man jump across the trail and then take a small hop into the woods, and we both took off and immediately ran to the spot where it crossed the trail. And we could hear it running off into the woods, you know, just chomp, 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 running off. And the only way I can describe the smell is just a very strong, exotic, musky smell, similar to a sweaty horse.
Since that initial sighting, Collier has scoured eastern Texas in search of evidence of the creature. And in 2006, his diligence paid off.
We did encounter what appeared to be two large tracks, side by side in the sand, and off to the left, a handprint on a small berm of sand. The footprints were like this, and the edge of the creek ran right where the toes were, so the toes were washed out. But there were clearly two footprints.
Collier preserved the prints by photographing them and pouring a plaster cast. The evidence has been sent to anthropology professor Jeff Meldrum for analysis. He will analyze the prints to attempt to identify what made them.
We would expect to find repeat appearances of the same feet, so repetition is one important feature.
Meldrum looks for a print that indicates dynamics or movement. His hope is that he can then determine the foot's biomechanics. And finally, he looks for latent features such as skin ridge detail or dermatoglyphics.
The cast has the appearance, at first glance, of being very similar to that of a human track. It has a large, big toe. Unfortunately, the lateral digits have been washed away at the edge of a stream. It has a relatively narrow heel.
The prints measure approximately 12 inches and appear similar to a human footprint, making unremarkable in themselves. But the unusual circumstance in which they were found raised questions.
The tracks were made in such a way that would be outside the behavioral profiles of humans. I mean, who walks around in the woods when it's 26 degrees, barefooted, with their feet at the edge of a cold creek, and then can squat down with flat feet and hold themselves up with one hand in the dirt? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Meldrum decides the footprint isn't unusual, but the handprint intrigues him.
One interesting feature, though, is the thumb. And that is, you can see as I put my hand in place here, my thumb is turned inward towards the other fingers to a greater degree than what is seen here on the cast. Here the pad of the thumb seems to be facing more or less the same direction as the other fingers. Now, that rotation of the thumb is a very human characteristic that allows us to oppose our digits to the thumb. Suggests a more ape-like condition, which we see in other examples of handprints, such as this one.
These mismatched prints seem to pose more questions than answers. Monster Quest is searching for an unknown beast that is said to roam the swamps and riverbanks near Fouke, Arkansas. Eyewitness accounts of the beast became the basis for The Legend of Boggy Creek, a movie that played in drive-in theaters in the early 1970s. Tourists continue to visit the area in hopes of catching a glimpse of the creature. The Monster Quest expedition to the area extends to the Ouachita Mountains in Oklahoma, where biologist Alton Higgins discovered a large set of tracks.
We'd been in there for days and never saw anybody else. And we just stopped again like we had done, dozens of times before. And I saw a little kind of a concentration of leaves in this kind of flat, muddy area. And I bent down and picked out the leaves, and as I picked out the leaves, a track was revealed. So there were 16-inch tracks, pretty deeply impressed in the mud. Paralleling the track were some bear tracks, an adult and a young bear. So, you could make a side-by-side comparison.
Higgins and investigator Jeff Davidson are contending with the heavy underbrush in search of physical evidence.
Man, out and look at all this greenbrier.
Yeah, that stuff is nasty. I've already got some cuts on my arm from it.
They come across some well-defined bear tracks.
Yeah, this is a pretty good-sized bear.
Pretty clear impressions. If this rear foot had come down into this forepaw impression,
the bear prints show how they can often be mistaken.
The track, in the absence of clear claw marks, you see how that would look clearly like a humanoid footprint.
The team, including Mark Peterson and Darrell Collier, meet at base camp to review the photos from their camera traps.
On the pond, we've got coons, and we got one coon real close, and then he climbed a tree and pulled the whole tree right in front of the camera. It's kind of neat. Up in the tree here.
Oh, okay. You can just pull it down, I think.
The two cameras transmit photos in real time around the clock to a computer at home base, even when the group is on reconnaissance.
And then the next night, we've got this bobcat.
Look at the clarity. Very crisp.
In Boggy Creek, Rick Knoll sets up a separate camera trap that employs different technology. A camera with a larger angle of view.
I'm really excited about this 360-degree lens that, when it's attached to a regular digital camera and with an eyepiece trip, will actually act as a camera trap.
The camera allows the team to see the entire area, allowing them to have a better vantage point on anything that might trip it. The computer software allows the photo to be unwrapped for viewing. Knoll quickly finds the amount of information from one photo can be overwhelming.
Wow, this one picture by the swamp. We'll have to hone down our way of determining what tripped these cameras for future use. Just so much data in here.
The team has found some unusual tracks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Hey guys, come take a look at this.
Well, it definitely looks like a track.
The footprint measures 13 inches long, with a heel approximately 5 inches. The ball of the foot is even wider.
Wow, 5.5.
It's difficult to determine just what could have made the tracks. Black bear are ruled out here, as they are not indigenous to this area. And it is not likely a human boot print, as the impression clearly has digits. Unfortunately, the group realizes the track is too old for further analysis. The team is still hopeful that the scat they gathered earlier will offer some clue to the swamp stalker.
Scat is a pretty commonly used sample for animal identification.
Dr. Vasyl Tkach studies parasitology at the University of North Dakota. His analysis will include checking for parasites as well as DNA analysis.
First thing that you look is the freshness of the sample, in which DNA would not be degraded. So the older the sample, the more the DNA is, and it creates difficulties in its extraction and processing.
A variety of things, including ultraviolet rays, may cause degradation, as well as growth of bacteria and fungi.
From the very beginning, look at the potential age of the sample. I decided that I will go with the mitochondrial DNA. I've chosen 2 genes as targets, and both have been heavily sequenced by zoologists, biologists, fish and wildlife biologists. So there's a lot of these sequences available for different mammals. So the major steps are, first, extraction of DNA out of your sample. Second step is amplification of your target gene.
The amplification process increases the number of copies of the gene sequence selected. The DNA sample is placed in a machine called a thermocycler. Increased heat causes a reaction called a polymer chain reaction, or PCR. Throughout the process, the sample undergoes a series of cleanup and purification. Finally, the last step before final analysis is obtaining a DNA sequence.
When you want to identify an animal, so you prefer a region that has been already sequenced and is known for all other potential animals.
DNA analysis may finally prove to be concrete evidence of the swamp stalker of Boggy Creek. Monster Quest has traveled to Fouke, Arkansas, where people claim to have seen a huge creature with a barrel chest and measuring 7 to 8 feet tall. They call it the swamp stalker of Boggy Creek. This man says the creature stalked his hunting blind. This hunter says the creature grabbed his arrowhead before running off into the forest. And this Bigfoot researcher claims it suddenly leapt across his path. The expedition is attempting to uncover new evidence, while also using modern science to re-examine some old clues. Anatomy and anthropology professor Jeff Meldrum has examined the gathered evidence, including this photo of a 3-toed footprint cast taken near Fouke in 1971.
I'm not familiar with any recognized genetic mutation that could be fixed in a population that would produce a consistent 3-toed track.
His conclusion?
The very real possibility that they're simply hoaxed footprints.
Meldrum has also analyzed some additional recent hand and footprint tracks found by the Monster Quest team in Texas.
There are features which are interesting but are not conclusive in differentiating this track and handprint, associated handprint, from a human source.
Meldrum says that the print and tracks can be explained as likely coming from a human. What he can't explain is how it got near a cold riverbank in the middle of winter.
It's hard to imagine a population of feral humans just living out in the woods of Arkansas or Oklahoma or East Texas and walking around barefoot in a flowing stream in sub-freezing temperatures. But on the other hand, it's also unpalatable proposition for many people that there's a feral population of unrecognized primates in the woods of East Texas as well.
The reports of this unknown beast have circulated in Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma for decades. The Eyewitness reports became the basis for the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek over 3 decades ago. And our expedition team is still looking for answers. Rick Knoll led a team of investigators in the Boggy Creek area and feels the expedition was a positive step towards revealing the swamp stalker. First, they used a criminal investigations tactic. and sprayed the riverbanks with a small particle reagent chemical. Noel feels further use of the procedure will have results.
I'm glad to finally get the SPR reagent out in the field and to test it on this type of research with the ultraviolet laser. We got mixed results because it was a new technology and the crew really needs to work with it more in the field before they perfect the methodology.
Next, Noel set camera traps in the area, but this time with a unique technological twist.
The 360 camera is still in its infancy.
Noel uses a special software program to unwrap the extreme angle lens.
We did get some pictures with the 360 lens, although I think it's all inconclusive right now. I plan on using the 360 lens in the field a lot more. There's some different ways of using it, and we just barely scratched the surface.
So first, and use this memory card.
The team also placed camera traps which reveal some activity that may explain why they were unable to find the swamp stalker.
Pictures are starting to come up now.
Oh, what's that one?
Well, that's one of the hunters that are parked down the road. Looks like a girl hunter walking through your camp. Got her gun with her.
This means the expedition's best chance for evidence of the creature from Boggy Creek still lies in the lab. Parasite expert Dr. Vasil Tkach performed extensive DNA testing on the scat the team gathered to determine the identity of the animal that left it. Although the sample was old, he succeeded in obtaining amplified DNA after 3 attempts. Then, using a high-powered compound microscope, Tkach analyzed the specimen for parasites.
There were numerous eggs of roundworms belonging to the ascarid family, very common parasites of pigs and humans, although they're totally different species and they cannot be transmitted from pigs to humans and vice versa.
The DNA analysis will likely confirm the identity.
This is a so-called alignment anyway. It's a comparison of sequences of many different pigs and wild boars from various parts of the United States with 2 sequences that I obtained from this particular sample. They are matching very well.
DNA analysis confirms Tkach's suspicion. The scat is from a wild boar or feral hog. The team identified another hotspot in the Ouachita Mountains of Oklahoma. Using special cameras that transmitted photos and video back to base camp, they were able to capture various species of wildlife.
And then the following morning, we have this bobcat. That's a cool picture.
The cameras that transmit photos allowed them to be more stealth in their approach. Because the cameras do not require as much maintenance, animals are undisturbed, allowing more activity to be photographed. The abundance of wildlife living in these mountains, woods, and bayous means there is a lot of prey available and confirms this is a likely home for the swamp stalker. And those who have seen this large, hairy animal that walks upright on 2 legs believe visual sightings offer proof of its own.
We have different kinds of footprints, some with 5 toes, some with 3 toes. We have, as far as we can see, not very much physical evidence of these creatures. So we really have to rely on the history, the traditions, and the eyewitness accounts.
We had a number of vocalizations that were around our campsite, and they were pretty dramatic vocalizations, close, and that was one of the most memorable experiences I think that any of us had.
I used to ride my 4-wheeler and stuff like that down through the mountains without any protection at all. Now I don't. It has changed my whole way of life in the mountains.
It's not going to impede our work. It's not going to keep us from doing what we've been doing, and that is to continue to go out in the field, to continue to attempt to gather conclusive evidence that there is a species in North America that remains undocumented.